Hello, everyone. I'm Billy.
And I'm Kamraun. Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors and the creators of the Malazan Brotherhood.
Today we'll be discussing Book 4, Chapter 22 of Memories of Ice, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 2 of our coverage of our chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it is most definitely not a replacement to reading the books. Both Billy and I know this to be the best fantasy story ever written and want to share our love of the series with you.
We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion, and there will be spoilers for those that have not read the books, and we'll try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book. And, dude, so deep in the book, and great job, brother.
Back at you. A quick warning. Today's episode contains adult topics and thus is not suitable for children.
Our show is listener supported, and if you'd like to support us, we'd really appreciate that. And you can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at HorseFrogProductions.com. Currently, we're posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we'd really like to hear from you. Send any feedback or comments to contact@HorseFrogProductions.com. We must correct a grievous error. We have desecrated the most sacred of fantasy tomes, The Lord of the Rings. I could not remember the name of Elrond's daughter during last week's episode. The name Eowyn was thrown out there, to which I foolishly agreed instead of validating the correct answer.
Do I need to perform some ritual of like obeisance or something to, express my heartfelt remorse at this error to the sci-fi fantasy community? I'm sorry if I've let you down.
Maybe 12 lashes.
Okay. I'll leave that to my lady tonight. I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. Our friend Derek from D&J's Epic Quest left us a comment on Spotify notifying us that her name is Arwen.
Oh my.
We apologize to all the Tolkien fans for our spread of misinformation in this matter. Eowyn was from Rohan.
Now, to be fair, I'm sorry, maybe there is no to be fair, but let's be honest, I have not read or watched. The movies are They're almost 20 years old. I haven't seen them in almost 20 years. I've seen them once. I love them. I own everything Lord of the Rings related because I'm a junkie. But at the same time, I started consuming the Malazan universe, and it has consumed a large portion of my life. And it's like, I'm sorry, I've kind of forgot a lot of stuff. Forgot a lot of names and places, man.
Yeah. I did see the first Lord of the Rings movie in the theater, I think like 5 times. I really loved that movie.
Nice. It's great, dude.
I read the books after I saw that movie, but it's been about 20 years. I've never felt the need to reread it, though.
Did you not read the series first?
I didn't. No. I saw the movies, then I read the books.
Wow. Okay.
The first movie came out, and then I read the books, then I saw the other 2.
Okay. I read The Hobbit in the 6th grade. I remember that very specifically, obviously. It was that led to my love in The Lord of the Rings. I did that, and a lot of that, and I've reread The Lord of the Rings. Not reread The Hobbit but twice, but The Lord of the Rings I've probably read 3 or 4 times. I've watched the series of movies a couple times. I think I've seen them all in the theater, which happy to say I did that one. And I even have the extended versions, which add an extra, 2 hours, 3 hours to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically everything but Tom Bombadil singing. And so it's fantastic, and I love it. But after I've watched it once, let's face it, man, Jackson did a masterful job.
Yeah, in the original trilogy, I agree.
It's like, dude, I don't think I could have done that any better. I'm pretty happy with that. So I never really went back and really delved into it a lot.
I'm so thankful he took that Tom Bombadil stuff out of the movies. Oh, my God. It almost defeated me when reading the books.
You ain't kidding. It almost did, but the best part of that was kind of left out, though. And I think that might be included in the extended, I believe, is they have the Barrow White situation that leads to Tom Bombadil rescuing Merry and Pippin, but that's where they get those blades from, is the Barrows. I like that part being I think in the extendeds, I believe that's left in there. Other than that was really the whole part of Merry and Pippin getting there, in my opinion, because that Tom Bombadil stuff never did anything else but be rescued by him and get those cool blades.
I don't even remember that because I kind of wiped that out of my memory.
I get it, dude. Painful stuff, man. It's close to High School Musical in the middle of Lord of the Rings. As a kid, it's like, nope. Just can't do it. Ain't gonna do it.
Now that you mention it, that's one thing I'm very thankful for in these books is there is little to no song.
Yes, because there's even song in Dark Tower.
Well, Derek, thanks for correcting us and reaching out.
Thanks, Derek.
Separately, check out D&J's Epic Quest. They are also covering the Malazan books as they work their way through the series for the first time. They're currently working their way through House of Chains.
Yeah.
All right, Chapter 22, Part 2. Riding beside Gruntle, Itkovian watched the two Greysword Outriders canter towards them. Gruntle asked, "Where are they coming from?" Itkovian said, "Flanking rearguard." Gruntle said, "With news to deliver, it seems." Itkovian said, "So it appears, sir." Gruntle said, "Well, aren't you curious? They both asked you to ride with them. If you'd said yes, you'd be hearing that report right now, instead of slouching along with us riffraff. Hey, that's a thought. I could divide my legion in 2 companies, call one Riff, and the other..." Behind them, Stani snapped, "Oh, spare us!" How do you think Trake is feeling about the decision to make Gruntle his mortal sword now?
Dude, Trake's a cat. What do you think he cares?
Mm.
I mean, I say this, I don't know. But a question, if Trake sees anything on the edge of a table or a bar or ledge, do you think he swats it off?
Naturally.
Do you think Gruntle has to now resist that compulsion?
I think he's slowly transforming, so if he isn't doing it already, he'll be there eventually.
Oh, yeah. I resist this compulsion. Not always. It's just occasionally. Sometimes I just want to knock something off. You know? I'm like, oh, I just want to knock that over. I don't know why. It's just craziness. It's my craziness.
Okay. So more of chaotic in nature as opposed to order.
Yes. Yes.
There you go. Gruntle twisted in his saddle and asked, "How long have you been in our shadow, woman?" Stani said, "I'm never in your shadow, Gruntle. Not you, not Itkovian, not any man. Besides, with the sun so low on our right, I'd have to be alongside you to be in your shadow. Not that I would be, of course." Gruntle grinned and said, "So instead, you're the woman behind me." Stani said, "And what's that supposed to mean, pig?" Gruntle said, "Just stating a fact, lass." Stani said, "Really? Well, you were wrong. I was about to make my way over to the Greyswords, only you 2 oafs were in the way." Gruntle said, "Stani, this ain't a road, it's a plain. How in Hood's name could we be in your way when you could ride your horse anywhere?" Stani said, "Oafs, lazy pigs. Someone here has to be curious. That someone needs a brain, of course, which is why you'll both just trot along, wondering what those outriders are reporting, wondering and doing not a damn thing about it. Because you're both brainless. As for me," using a dry tone, Itkovian said, "as for you, you seem to be talking to us, sir. Indeed, engaged in a conversation." Stani snapped, "Which has now ended." Neck reining her horse to the left, then launching it past them. They watched her ride towards the other column. You know, she's like the group member that latches onto the group and makes everyone miserable with their presence. She inserted herself into their conversation, berated them, then gets mad when called out on it, and storms off. It's amazing that her and Gruntle are still friends after all these years.
Oh, I know it, dude. She really is something, but I think part of it is because of the way that she is so high-strung sometimes, I guess is the best way to put that, is that we all have got those folks that, don't you just kind of like needling them when they're like that? And I think she's that way. They expect nothing more from her to be this way. So it's like, oh, and so Gruntle just kind of like, man, I'll say everything that makes her, he knows it's going to tick her off, but he just keeps, it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to just keep saying it, dude. Yeah, I just got to keep saying this.
Oh, Billy, I don't like how right you are. Let me tell you about my life right now.
Please.
I have a 16-year-old who has gotten into rage baiting me. He says things knowing that they're going to upset me because he likes the reaction that he gets from me. I'm giving him everything he needs. So in this scenario, he's Gruntle and I'm Stani, apparently. I'm the problem because I'm giving him the negative reinforcement that he's craving he's getting the reaction that he wants.
Is it impossible to ignore? Is it one that you just can't ignore and let go and just be like, because I trust me, I'm the same way. Man, when I had boys and I did not do too well with my late wife's stepkids. They could really get me going. I was pretty easy to push into that stuff.
The last thing I remember where this manifested, we had walked out of the gym one morning and he made a comment that didn't logically make sense. Something about the weather outside and how he expected it to feel good, but it didn't. And I was like, why would you think it feels good? It's Houston. It's the summer. It's always going to be terrible. And then he spends the next 10 minutes arguing with me about how he was right with the way he said it. And like, it wasn't like a serious argument, but I was trying to get an understanding about the way he said it didn't make sense.
You're me. Oh my gosh. It's words.
Then we're in the car.
It's words,
Hold on.
man. Words matter.
Yeah. After a couple minutes, he goes, I've agreed with you this whole time. I'm just rage baiting you. And I said, and I wasn't like super mad, but I was like, I was like getting increasingly more flustered, trying to understand the logic in what he's saying. But apparently today I learned I'm Stani and I'm the problem.
I need to teach you the 3 questions. It's the 3 questions. It's for all debates. Don't use this on your family, but you can use variations on a theme. But I've learned this from reading books on apologetics. So many times people make statements and we've rushed to defenses. When people make statements, you have to say things that don't make you make statements. You have to ask questions.
Okay.
There's the 3 questions to ask. When they do that to you, it's like, what do you mean by that? Make sure I understand what you mean first. Where did you hear that from? And how did you come to that conclusion? Make them spell it out to you. But it requires variations on a theme. But that's really the big 3. If you work yourself through those things, because people say things, and a lot of times we respond, and if you respond, it's up to you to make a defense. So if you make people defend what they're saying, especially when they make statements, you're like me, the words really matter. And even, it's like words really, really matter. And sometimes people say things, and it's not a slang issue. They use the English language very wrongly. And I'm looking at them like, I understand the words separately that you said to me, yes. But it's like, do you understand the words that you just said to me? Kind of deal. He's like, because I don't think I think I may understand what you mean, but I need you to tell me what you mean by that, because I have no idea what you just said, in all honesty. You might as well be speaking a foreign language to me. And so,
yeah, you're right. Getting the definition. What does that mean to you? And understanding what they said means. Yeah, it's funny. I do that at work, but I guess at home it's different. Bro. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
They get past that first level real easy. And you get in trouble if you use that on the family. Trust me. That's the big thing. I'm just going to hush. I'll just stop right there. Move along, sir.
Yeah, it's human challenges. I understand where you're going. I got it.
Oh, yeah. I guess what I was saying is if you remain calm while arguing, I'm always accused I was accused of the latenesses of this way. And it's like, I'm like, look, you can't say that. If I'm either too calm, if I maintain calm, if you're not calm, you're losing. So you just have to just say nothing. It's your safest option.
Thanks for the advice on the questions to ask.
It works really great, man. If I can remember to use them myself.
Yeah. After a moment, Gruntle shrugged, then said, "Wonder what she'll hear." Akovian said, "As do I." They rode on, their pace steady, if a little slow. Gruntle's legion marched in their wake. Akovian has suggested, sometime earlier, that some training might prove beneficial, to which Gruntle had grinned and said nothing. Trake's mortal sword despised armies. Indeed, despised anything even remotely connected to the notion of military practices. He was indifferent to discipline, and had but one officer, a Lastari soldier, fortunately, to manage his now 80 followers, stony-eyed misfits that he'd laughingly called Trake's Legion. Gruntle was, in every respect, Itkovian's opposite. Have you noticed that everyone Itkovian comes into contact with seems to become his friend?
Yeah, that's one thing I really dig about him. He's so chill. And I don't know if it's just is it just because he's kind of free, maybe? Because what we'd seen of him earlier in the book, where, granted, he is supposed to be there defending a city, and these boys apparently take their contracts super serious. But with the contract kind of being over, even though it's kind of, he deems it failure, there's some easiness to him that he's got, at least for right now. I don't know why I see this with him, or he seems to. If he's pretending, he does a good job of pretending. I don't know. I don't get it. He's really cool, man. I really like seeing him. I like how that happens, where he does seem to befriend everyone he talks to.
I think you're onto something with him having had those attendant responsibilities in the past. And now that he doesn't have those, he's freed up to be himself more. Yeah. He was willing to drink with the other people, for example. He seems to be hanging out with people and conversing with them in situations outside of the responsibilities of the contract that they had defending Kapustan. So more of his personality is coming out.
Yeah, I agree totally. Because for him, I guess this is in a way, a new thing. He's kind of opening himself up here to some new stuff. Just being one of the guys.
Yeah, and to that point, I did find it interesting, given the differences between Gruntle and Itkovian, how well they're getting along.
Oh yeah. Well, I think a lot can be said, in particular, about. Well, they're both fighting in this same conflict. So that creates a type of bond. We get that bond of blood, even though they haven't fought side by side. They fought in the same battle, same war, I'll put it like that, for Kapistan, or siege. I'm not sure how you say what would be the correct term, but that would create something. But there's just really something about Itkovian. Like, It's like he radiates this stuff that just, I don't know if he's radiating a calm or a vibe that people are just like, that if you're talking with him, he seems to make you kind of look back at things and examine you. He said, really, like I say, I don't really understand it either. It's really cool.
Gruntle growled, "Here she comes." Akovian said, "She rides with much drama."
Oh, man.
Gruntle said, "Aye, a fierceness not unique to sitting in a saddle from all that I've heard." Akovian glanced at Gruntle and said, "My apologies. I had assumed you and she..." Gruntle said, "A few times, when we were both drunk, alas. Her more drunk than me, I'll admit. Neither of us talk about it, generally. We stumbled onto the subject once and it turned into an argument about which of us was the more embarrassed. Ah, lass, what news?" Stani reined in hard, her horse's hooves kicking up dust. She said, "Why in Hood's name should I tell you?" Gruntle asked, "Then why in Hood's name did you ride back to us?" Dude.
I love that COVID is just so new to the, how shall we say, the difficulties that can arise between men and women and just people in general at this point in his life.
Mm-hmm. Seems like he hasn't talked about it much or had to deal with it much given the company that he kept.
Yeah, those are some serious fellows. It's like, it was always, especially when these fellows are trying to turn down Heaton's advances, it's always very funny because they're so uncomfortable.
Right. She scowled and said, "I was simply returning to my position, oaf. And you, Itkovian. That had better not be a hint of a smile I see there. If it was, I'd have to kill you." Itkovian said, "Most certainly not, sir." Stani said, "Glad to hear it." Gruntle said, "So?" Stani said, "What?" Gruntle exclaimed, "The news, woman!" Stani said, "Oh, that. Wonderful news, of course. It's the only kind we hear these days, right? Pleasing revelations, happy times." Gruntle said, "Stani." She said, "Old friends, Gruntle. Trundling after us about a league back. Big bone carriage, pulled by a train that ain't quite what it seems. Dragging a pair of flatbed wagons behind, too. Loaded with junk. Did I say junk? I meant loot, of course, including more than one sun-blackened corpse. And an old man on the driver's seat, with a mangy cat in his lap. Well, what do you know? Old friends, yes?" Gruntle's expression had flattened, his eyes suddenly cold. He asked, "No Buke?" Stani said, "Not even his horse. Either he's flown or..." Gruntle wheeled his horse round and drove his heels into the beast's flanks. Ikovian hesitated. He glanced at Stani and was surprised to see undisguised sympathy softening her face. Her green eyes found him. She quietly said, "Catch up with him, will you?" He nodded, lowered the visor of his Malazan helm. The faintest shift in weight and a momentary brush of the reins against the horse's neck brought the animal about. His mount was pleased with the opportunity to stretch his legs, and given its lighter burden was able to draw Ikovian alongside Gruntle with 2/3 of a league remaining. Gruntle's horse was already laboring. Ikovian called, "Sir! Pace, sir! Else we'll be riding double on the return." Gruntle hissed a curse, made as if to urge his horse yet faster, then relented, straightening in the saddle, reins loose. As the beast's gallop slowed, fell into a canter. Ikovian advised, "Fast trot now, sir. We'll drop to a walk in 100 paces so she can stretch her neck and open full her air passages." After a moment, Gruntle said, "Sorry, Ikovian. There's no heat to my temper these days, but that seems to make it all the deadlier, I'm afraid." Ikovian said Trake would. Gruntle cut in, "No, don't even try, friend. I've said it before. I don't give a damn what Trake wants or expects of me. And the rest of you had best stop seeing me that way. Mortal sword. I hate titles. I didn't even like being called captain when I guarded caravans. I only used it so I could charge more." Ikovian asked, "Do you intend to attempt harm upon these travelers, sir?" Gruntle said, "You well know who they are." Ikovian said, "I do." Gruntle said, "I had a friend." Ikovian said, "Aye, the one named Buke. I recall him. A man broken by sorrow. I once offered to take his burdens, but he refused me." Gruntle's head snapped round at that. He asked, "You did? He did?" Ikovian nodded. He said, "Perhaps I should have been more direct." Gruntle said, "You should have grabbed him by the throat and done it no matter what he wanted. That's what the new shield anvil's done to that one-eyed first child of the Dead Seed, Anaster, isn't it? And now the man rides at her side." Ikovian cut in. "Rides unknowing. He is not but a shell, sir. There was naught else within him but pain. Its taking has stolen his knowledge of himself. Would you have had that as Buke's fate as well, sir?" Gruntle grimaced. So, Anaster has undergone, quote-unquote, the procedure. I wonder what he'll be like now, given what Ikovian just said about him.
The Ludovico treatment? I'm crossing genres here. I don't know. It's already not really good for him. He's already kind of like hollowed out. Like he's riding with him kind of empty in the saddle, just maintaining, I guess, just sitting there.
I wonder what personality changes have occurred because of this. Is he like lobotomized?
Yeah.
Guess we'll have to see.
The way that I read that statement is that he's lost to himself. It's taking has stolen his knowledge of himself. apparently, since it's all an Aster had within him was this, I guess, anger or whatever, he's been relieved of that, whether he wanted it or not. It's left him empty with nothing. So he may just be, is he a vegetable? Is he just, able to follow commands and not make any decisions on his own? Or what's, I don't know how to read that.
We'll see.
It'd definitely be a wait and see thing.
Less than a third of a league remained, assuming Stani's claim was accurate. But the roll of the eroded beach ridges reduced the line of sight, and indeed it was the sound that the carriage made, a muted clanking riding the wind, that alerted the two men to its proximity. They crested a ridge and had to rein in quickly to avoid colliding with the train of oxen. Emancipor Reese was wearing a broad, smudged bandage, wrapped vertically about his head, not quite covering a swollen jaw and puffy right eye. The cat in his lap screamed at the sudden arrival of the two riders, then clawed its way up the servant's chest, over the left shoulder, and onto the roof of the ghastly carriage, where it vanished into a fold of Kachain Chamal bone and skin. Reese himself jumped into his seat, almost toppling from his perch before recovering his balance. I say this every time he comes back into the picture, but poor Mancy. He just cannot catch a break. I'm sure you, like me, have had cats climb you in the past, and it's never a pleasant experience. Usually for me, it's the result of a failed attempt at jumping into my lap, leading to a cliffhanger-like scenario with meat hooks in my thigh as they slowly drag their claws down my leg.
I'm sorry. I'm flashing back. It's about the only thing I have PTSD about is failed cat landings, or the ones where they are sitting on the arm of the chair and they nod off and roll off, and then in their last ditch effort they latch onto your arm and hang from your arm in the same said manner. And I think I've brought this up in past episodes where, as a child, of course, I've been scarred by our history books, but there's an image from, it had to be Texas history, showing a Native American hanging from, have you seen that, hanging from their, basically what equates like their nipples or from their chest, by spikes driven through their chest like a piercing, hanging from these things for so long to demonstrate their manhood, Forget that, just hang a 20-pound tomcat from some dude's nipples for about 20 seconds to prove to me that you're a man. You got me. And the other thing is, every time we keep seeing these guys, I keep saying it, keep thinking, this is definitely the last time we're seeing these guys.
I know.
Last time we're seeing these guys, right? I'm pretty sure this is the last time we see these guys, right? So,
all right. I'll give a warning as we get into this segment here. I'm going to try my best to recreate Mancy's speech. It's going to be challenging. All right.
It's mangled.
Actually, I got an idea. Yes. We'll see if it works.
Yeah, there you go.
Reese said, "Bastard! Why you do that? Hood bluff." Akovian said, "Apologies, sir, for startling you so. You are injured." Reese said, "Injured? No. Tooth, broken, olive pit."
I love your commitment. I love the commitment.
Akovian frowned, glanced at Gruntle. Gruntle shrugged and guessed olive pit, maybe. Reese nodded vigorously and said, "Aye," then winced at the motion. He asked, "What do you want?" Gruntle drew a deep breath, then said, "The truth, Reese. Where's Buke?" Reese shrugged and said, "Gone." Gruntle asked, "Did they?" Reese interrupted, "No, gone, flown." He jerked his arms up and down and said, "Flap, flap. Understand? Yes?"
Nice, dude. I'm sorry, that's great.
Gruntle sighed, glanced away, then slowly nodded. A moment later, he said, "Well enough." The carriage door opened and Bacalain leaned out. He said, "Why have we stopped?" "Ah, the caravan captain. And the gray sword, I believe. But where, sir, is your uniform?" Akovian said, "I see no need." Bacalain interrupted, "Never mind," climbing out of the wagon. He said, "I wasn't really interested in your answer." "Well, gentlemen, you have business to discuss, perhaps. Indulge my rudeness, if you will. I am weary and short of temper of late, alas. Indeed, before you utter another word, I advise you not to irritate me. The next unpleasant interruption is likely to see my temper snap entirely, and that would be a truly fell thing, I assure you. Now, what would you with us?" Gruntle said, "Nothing." Bacalain's thin black brows rose fractionally. He said, "Nothing?" Gruntle said, "I came to inquire of Buke." Bacalain said, "Buke? Who? Oh, yes, him. Well, the next time you see him, tell him he is fired." Gruntle said, "I'll do that." No one spoke for a moment. Then Akovian cleared his throat and said, "Sir, your servant has broken a tooth and appears to be in considerable discomfort. Surely, with your arts." Bacalain turned and looked up at Reese. He said, "Ah, that explains the head garb. I admit I'd been wondering. A newly acquired local fashion, perhaps? But no, as it turns out. Well, Reese, it seems I must once more ask Corball Broach to make ready for surgery. This is the third such tooth to break, yes? More olives, no doubt. If you still persist in the belief that olive pits are deadly poison, why are you so careless when eating said fruit? Ah, never mind." Reese said, "No further! Please! No! Please!" The third broken tooth from olive pits, you think he'd have learned by now, especially given how Corball Broach has been operating on him this whole time. At a minimum, you think he'd want to avoid that again, given his response here.
Man, this old boy just must really love olives. I gotta say, man. Oh.
Bacalain said, "What are you babbling about, man? Be quiet. Wipe that drool away. It's unsightly. Do you think I cannot see your pain, servant? Tears have sprung from your eyes, and you are white, a deathly white. And look at you shake so. Not another moment must be wasted. Corball Broach, come out, if you will, with your black bag. Corball!" The wagon rocked slightly in answer. Gruntle swung his horse round. Ikovian followed suit. Bacalain called out behind them, "Until later then, gentlemen. Rest assured, I am grateful for you advising me of my servant's condition, as he is equally grateful, no doubt. And were he able to speak coherently, I'm sure he would tell you so." Gruntle lifted a hand in a brusque wave. They set off to rejoin Trake's legion. Neither spoke for a time, until a soft rumbling from Gruntle drew Ikovian's attention. The mortal sword, he saw, was laughing. Ikovian asked, "What amuses you so, sir?" Gruntle said, "You, Ikovian. I expect Reese will curse your concern for the rest of his days." Ikovian said, "An odd expression of gratitude, that would be. Will he not be healed?" Gruntle said, "Oh yes, I am sure he will, Ikovian. But here's something for you to ponder on, if you will. Sometimes the cure is worse than the disease." Ikovian asked, "Can you explain that?" Gruntle said, "Ask Emancipor Reese the next time you see him." Ikovian said, "Very well, I will do just that, sir." We are taken back to Kapustan. The stench of smoke clung to the walls, and sufficient old stains blotting the rugs attested to the slaughter of acolytes down hallways and in anterooms and annexes throughout the temple. Call wondered if Hood had been pleased to have his own children delivered unto him, within the god's own sanctified structure. It appeared to be no easy thing to desecrate a place made sacred to death. Call could feel the breath of unabated power, cool and indifferent, as he sat on the stone bench outside the chamber of the sepulchre. Murillo paced up and down the wide main hallway to his right, stepping into his line of sight then out again, over and over. In the holy chamber beyond, the Knight of Death was preparing a place for the Mibe. 3 bells had passed since Hood's chosen servant had walked into the chamber of the sepulchre, the doors closing of their own accord behind him. Call waited until Murillo appeared once more. He said, "He can't let go of those swords." Murillo paused and glanced over and then said, "So?" Call rumbled, "Well, it might well take him 3 bells to make a bed." Murillo's expression filled with suspicion. He asked, "That was supposed to be funny?" Call said, "Not entirely. I was thinking in pragmatic terms. I was trying to imagine the physical awkwardness of attempting to do anything with swords stuck to your hands. That's all." Murillo made to say something, changed his mind with a muttered oath, wheeled, and resumed his pacing. He seems real uptight right now. Not even willing to joke about anything. Maybe it's because they're in Hood's holy area, sanctified area. Maybe he's real nervous about that. What do you think's going on?
Yeah, it could be because, people have been killed here. A lot of people have been killed here, it seems like. Mm-hmm. And recently, and like he would expect, he was expecting something like outrage maybe in the temple, and there's not. It's like, yeah, whatever. There's more dead folks here. And I think he's kind of freaked out by that, yeah.
They had carried the Mibe into the temple 5 days past, settling her into a room that had once belonged to a ranking priest. They had unloaded the wagon and stored their food and water in the cellars amidst the shards of hundreds of shattered jugs, and the floor and the walls made sticky with wine. They are thick and cloying and rank as an innkeeper's apron. So, shattered jugs don't become potsherds yet?
I was just thinking about some kind of potsherd reference. I'm like, am I going to just say anything? It's like, oh, no, I know. I'll let that one go.
Did we encounter many of those in Deadhouse Gates?
Lots of sherds, I think, in certain areas in Deadhouse Gates, but not a single sherd that I'm aware of. And I'm here.
Wow.
And this, I don't think I recall the potsherds being a big deal. That may come later, too. I can't remember. There may be lots of potsherds in our future.
Yeah, Genabacchus seems to be lacking in sherd-like materiel.
It is a shirtless... a shirtless place, sir.
Well done.
No shoes, no shirt. Thank you.
Every meal since had tasted wine-soaked, reminding Call of the almost 2 years he had wasted as a drunk. He would have liked to call the man he had been a stranger now, but the world had a way of spinning unnoticed, until what he'd thought he'd turned his back on suddenly faced him again. Even worse, introspection, for him at least, was a funnel in sand, a spider waiting at the bottom, and Call well knew he was quite capable of devouring himself. Murillo strode into view again. Call said, "The ant danced blind." Murillo asked, "What?" Call said, "The old children's tale, remember it?" Murillo said, "You've lost your mind, haven't you?" Call said, "Not yet, at least I don't think so." Murillo said, "But that's just it, Call. You wouldn't know, would you?" He watched Murillo spin round once more, step past the wall's edge and out of sight. Call thought, the world spins about us unseen. The blind dance in circles. There's no escaping what you are, and all your dreams glittered white at night, but gray in the light of day. And both are equally deadly. Who was that damned poet? The Vindictive. An orphan, he'd claimed. Wrote 1,000 stories to terrify children. Was stoned by a mob in Darujistan, which he survived. I think. That was years ago. His tales live in the streets now. Sing-song chants to accompany the games of the young. Damned sinister, if you ask me. Man, can you imagine surviving a stoning? Probably have some serious brain and facial damage.
Oh, absolutely, dude. The Apostle Paul had this happen to him, actually. He survived one because he was not liked by people. But yeah, it would be awful.
Call shook himself, seeking to clear his mind before stumbling into yet another pitfall of memory. Before she'd stolen his estate, before she'd destroyed him, Simtal had told him she carried his child. He wondered if that child had ever existed. Simtal fought with lies where others used knives. There had been no announcement of any birth, though of course the chance of his missing such an announcement was pretty much certain in those days that followed his fall. But his friends would have known, would have told him. If not then now. Murillo stepped into view. Call growled. "A moment there." Murillo said, "Now what? The beetle flipped on its back? The worm circling the hole?" Call said, "A question, Murillo." Murillo said, "All right, if you insist." Call asked, "Did you ever hear tell of a child born to Simtal?" He watched Murillo's face slowly close, the eyes narrowing. He said, "That is a question not to be asked in this temple, Call." Call said, "I'm asking it nonetheless." Murillo said, "I do not think you're ready." Call cut in, "Not for you to judge, and you should know better, Murillo. Damn it, I've been sitting on the council for months, and I'm still not ready? What absurdity is—" Murillo interrupted, All right. It's just this. There's only rumors." Call said, "Don't lie to me." Murillo said, "I'm not. There was a span of more than a few months, just after your, demise, when she made no public appearance. Explained away as mourning, of course, though everyone knew." Call said, "Yes, I know what everyone knew. So she hid out for a time. Go on." Murillo continued, "Well, we believe she was consolidating her position. Behind the scenes. Rallick was keeping an eye on her. At least I think he was. He'd know more." Call said, "And you two never discussed the details of what she was up to, what she looked like?" Murillo said, "Well, what would Rallick know of mothering?" Call said, "When they're with child, their bellies swell, and their breasts get bigger. I'm sure our assassin friend has seen one or two so afflicted women on Darujistan's streets. Did he just think they were eating melons whole?" Murillo said, "No need to be sarcastic, Call. All I'm saying is he wasn't sure." Call asked, "What about the estate's servants? Any women who'd just given birth?" Murillo said, "Rallick never mentioned." Call said, "My, what an observant assassin." Murillo snapped, "Fine! Here's what I think. She had a child. She sent it away. Somewhere. She wouldn't have abandoned it, because at some point she would have wanted to use it. As a verifiable heir. As marriage bait. Whatever. Simtal was lowborn. Whatever contacts she had from her past were private ones, kept from everyone but those involved, including you, as you well know. I think she sent the child that way. Somewhere no one would think of looking." Call said, "Almost 3 now," slowly leaning back to rest his head against the wall. He closed his eyes. He said, 3 years of age. Murillo said, "Maybe so, but at the time there wasn't any way of finding." Call said, "You'd have needed my blood, then Baruch." Murillo snapped, "Right. We'd just go and bleed you one night when you were passed out drunk." Call asked, "Why not?" Murillo said, "Because, you ox, back then there didn't seem much point." Call said, "Fair enough, but I've walked a straight line for months now, Murillo." Murillo said, "Then you do it, Call. Go to Baruch." Call said, "I will, now that I know." Murillo said, "Listen, friend. I've known a lot of drunks in my time. You look at 4 or 5 months being sober and think it's eternity. But me, I see a man still brushing the puke from his clothes. A man who could get knocked right back down. I wasn't going to push. It's too soon." Call said, "I hear you. I don't curse your decision, Murillo. You were right to be cautious. But what I see now, that is a reason. Finally, a real reason to hold myself up. Murillo said, Call, I hope you're not thinking you can just walk into whatever household your child's being raised in and take it away. Call said, Why not? It's mine. Murillo said, And there's a place waiting for it on your mantelpiece, right? Call asked, You think I can't raise a child? Murillo said, I know you can't, Call. But if you do this right, you can pay to see it grow up well, with opportunities that it might not otherwise have. Call said, A hidden benefactor. Huh, that would be noble. Murillo said, Be honest. It would be convenient, Call. Not noble, not heroic. Call said, And you call yourself a friend? Murillo said, I do. Call sighed. He said, And so you should, though I don't know what I've done to deserve such friendship. Murillo said, Since I don't want to depress you further, we'll discuss that subject some other time. I think it was a real stand-up move for Murillo to tell Call how he sees this situation without beating around the bush. And thankfully, Call had the maturity to accept the information without shooting the messenger.
Yes. Also makes it a very touching scene between these guys because of that fact, and the fact I love that Call kind of says, accepts the fact that he goes, I don't know what I've done to deserve such a friendship. That's a very touching line for me. I feel like that a lot. I feel like that about you and other friends of mine too. It's like, well, I don't know what I've done to deserve a friendship like y'all. I'm serious.
I appreciate it, sir.
I'm serious. Oh, you're welcome. It's true, though.
Well, I mean, just be a good person. You're going to get good friends. I mean, that's generally how it works. I think most of the time you're going to attract like-minded people.
It works out pretty well. That's what I've discovered, yes.
The massive stone doors to the chamber of the sepulchre swung open. Grunting, Call rose from the bench. The Knight of Death stepped into the hallway to stand directly before Murillo. He said, Bring the woman. The preparations are complete. Call strode to the entrance and looked within. A large hole had been carved through the floor, solid stone in the center of the chamber. Shattered stone rose in heaps banked against a side wall. Suddenly chilled, Call pushed past the Knight of Death. He exclaimed, Hood's breath! That's a damn sarcophagus! Murillo rushed to join Call and cried, What? He stared at the burial pit, then spun to the knight and yelled, The Mibe's not dead, you fool! The warrior's lifeless eyes fixed on Call's companion. He said, The preparations are complete. Just what in Hood's name is going on here? What does he have in mind for the Mibe?
That is a fantastic question. I don't think you're going to get much answers out of the knight here. He's like, hey, man, I've done my job, man. The preparations are complete.
Yeah, I don't think he's much for a conversation right now.
Yeah.
He's telling them what they're going to hear.
Exactly. I think he probably sits there for 12 hours going, the preparations are complete.
Yeah.
What don't y'all get about the preparations are complete?
Mm-hmm. Ankle deep in dust, she stumbled across a wasteland. The tundra had disintegrated, and with it the hunters, the demonic pursuers who had been such unwelcome company for so long. The desolation surrounding her was, she realized, far worse. No grasses underfoot, no sweet, cool wind. And she was weakening, her youthful muscles failing in some undefinable way. Not weariness alone, but some kind of chronic dissolution. She was losing her substantiality, and that realization was the most terrifying of all. The sky overhead was colorless, yet faintly illuminated by some unseen source. It seemed impossibly distant. To look upward for too long was to risk madness, mind railing at its inability to comprehend what the eyes were seeing. So she held her gaze fixed directly ahead as she staggered on. There was nothing to mark the horizon in any direction. She might well be walking in circles for all she knew, though if so, it was a vast circle, for she'd yet to cross her own path. She had no destination in mind for this journey of the spirit, nor the will to seek to fashion one in this deathly dreamscape, had she known how. Her lungs ached, as if they too were losing their ability to function. Before long, she believed, she herself would begin to dissolve. This young body defeated in a way that was opposite to what she had feared for so long. She would not be torn to pieces by wolves. The wolves were gone. No, she knew now that nothing had been as it had seemed. It had been something different, something secret, a riddle she'd yet worked out. And now it was too late. Oblivion had come for her. The abyss she had seen in her nightmares of so long ago had been a place of chaos, of frenzied feeding on souls, of miasmic memories detached and flung on storm winds. Perhaps those visions had been the products of her own mind, after all. The true abyss was what she was now seeing on all sides, in every direction. Something broke the horizon's flat line. Something monstrous and crouched, bestial, off to her right. It had not been there a moment ago. Or perhaps it had. Perhaps this world itself was shrinking, and her few frail steps had unveiled what lay beyond the land's curvature. She moaned in sudden terror, even as her steps shifted direction, drew her towards the apparition. It grew visibly larger with every stride she took, swelled horribly until it claimed a third of the sky. Pink-streaked raw bones rising upward.
A cage of ribs, each rib scarred, knotted with malignant growths, calcifications, porous nodes, cracks, twists, and fissures. Between each bone, skin was stretched, enclosing whatever lay within. Blood vessels spanned the skin, pulsing like red lightning, flickering and dimming before her eyes. That description was so vivid for me. What an image.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for our audience, Kamraun has put a picture in here. I don't know where he got this from. This is a fantastic image. That it's about as close as I can envision that. It's just it is an image painted. Man, what a great job he does in painting these images. It's amazing.
So that image, I actually took that description and I put it exactly as it was described in the book into a AI image generator, and that's what came out.
Nice.
It did such a good job of
That's good.
describing it that it didn't take much iteration at all to get there.
I've played with those a little bit. They're kind of fun to mess with, aren't they?
Yeah. For this, the storm of life was passing. For this, and for her as well. Rasping, she asked, "Are you mine?" as she stumbled to within 20 paces of the ghastly cage. She said, "Does my heart lie inside, slowing with each beat? Are you me?" Emotions suddenly assailed her, feelings that were not her own, but came from whatever lay within the cage. Anguish, overwhelming pain. She wanted to flee, yet it sensed her. It demanded that she stay, that she come closer, close enough to reach out, to touch. The Maib screamed. She was in a cloud of dust that clawed her eyes blind. On her knees suddenly, feeling as if she was being torn apart. Her spirit, her every instinct for survival rearing up one last time. To resist the summons, to flee. But she could not move. And then the force reached out. It began to pull. And the land beneath her shifted, tilted. The dust slicked. The dust became as glass. On her hands and knees, she looked up through streaming eyes, the scene dancing before her. The ribs were ribs no longer. They were legs. And skin was not skin. It had become a web. And she was sliding. Man, this is getting pretty intense.
Yeah.
Do you see this as the crippled god's prison in some way?
I was thinking that because anytime, I'm sorry, what little bit we've seen, it's always mentioned, they got growths or malignance or calcification, something, something wrong with the individual. So yeah, I'm reading crippled god into this.
That's the feeling I get as well. I'm a voice from the future. While editing last week's episode, I realized what the rib cage that we're talking about in this section is. The Maib sees this rib cage, and it's not symbolizing the crippled god. It's Tok's chest, and the trapped being represents the wolf god inside of it. What do you think of that theory?
Okay, that's probably more apropos. That tracks.
Okay, there we go. Back to the present. And thus the chapter ends.
Good chapter.
For standout moments, Gruntle and Itkovian pointing out the logical fallacy in Stani's complaints about them being in her way. That was particularly enjoyable to me.
It's almost as good as some bridge burner dialogue. They just, they get under her skin like they get under, like some of the bridge burners get under other bridge burners' skins. In particular, how they do Ansi. It's like Ansi. I think Ansi's the closest one.
Rage baiting Ansi.
Yes, because they do Ansi all the time. I mean, they bait that one poor thing all the time. You're like, good golly, no wonder he's saying Ansi.
Yeah.
But it's very similar. It's like very similar.
Yeah. I also like how Itkovian is branching out and making friends among the different armies. Everybody he talks to seems to like him.
Yeah, this is really cool. I enjoy seeing this a lot.
I'll say with the exception of Anaster, who apparently he was his arch nemesis and absolutely terrified of him.
You're right. Agreed. Sorry, Anaster.
Itkovian's blunder in pointing out Mancy's tooth issue to Bacalane. Poor Mancy.
It's so... Poor Mancy. What's bad is I imagine poor Mancy's horror when he sees that black bag come out from that little madman coming out of that carriage. I can just see that image really plainly, and it's funny because it's horrific at the same time. It's hilarious.
Finding out that Lady Simtal secretly gave birth to a child fathered by Call.
And that's a really big wow. I'm curious to see where that goes. I like Call, I like Murillo, I like that. I like the Deregistan crew that aren't from the Malazan side. The folks that we like from Deregistan are folks I like from Deregistan. I dig them.
I miss Rallic.
Dude.
We don't get much assassin action in this book.
I want to say it's more of a war book, but it's like, even the siege was not terribly, it was nasty, but it wasn't particularly long. I don't recall. It didn't feel long going through it. It wasn't like the Chain of Dogs, which is the book.
That's just because I think it was going faster than the lead up. It felt faster.
Right. Agreed.
I appreciated Murillo telling Call the hard truth about the situation with his daughter and the fact that he really wasn't in a position to become her father at this point in time.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. First off, that he just didn't, you're right, no him and Han, just right to the truth because he knows it's what he needs to hear. And also, let's just give it to Call for accepting the straight shooting and not, like you said, shoot the messenger on that situation.
Yeah. That reveal that the Knight of Death has been digging out a tomb in the sepulcher was something else.
What's going on with that, man?
We need to learn more.
Ex-Bowden. It used to be Bowden.
Yeah. The Knight of Death, formerly known as Bowden.
Yes. He seems just clueless. He's kind of like driven. The sword stuck in his hand. For some reason, that bothers me.
Yes, especially one of them being bent.
Yeah. At least let the fella take one out and swap it out or something. Give him a moment to take his hands loose, please.
Yeah. Then finally, the crazy imagery in the Mibes dream with that rib cage and all the malignant tumors and the skin with the veins flashing like lightning. That would be really cool to see visualized.
That's great. I love that image you generated for that, by the way. That was amazing. And I think you almost couldn't, I don't think you could do any better. Fantastic.
It was pretty cool. It's a little too cartoony for my take. It's too clean. It needs to be dirtied up a little bit with a true artist touch, but I think it does it's a good starting point for someone.
Agreed.
All right, great job tonight, Billy.
Hey, man, really great episode. Like wrapping that up. That's good.
You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
Yeah, there's just some stuff I just really enjoyed. Unlike you, I think I really enjoyed the Ikovian Gruntle thing. And not just with Gruntle, but just lately seeing Ikovian. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen with him as we get closer on this ride. But I hope we get some more encounters with him and some other soldiery that he's hanging out with while we're here on the road to Coral, right?
Yeah.
So I hope we get some more of this genuine interactions so we can see more of Ikovian kind of come out. And I'm very curious to see what's going to happen to the Mive here now.
Yeah. It's actually starting to get interesting as opposed to draining.
Right. As opposed to being innervating, sir.
Yes.
Use your Eriksonian speech.
Use my big words. That is the word I use to describe the heat of the Texas summer.
Yes.
The season of rot is enervating in Texas.
Yeah. There was a good meme of a guy on the bicycle in scuba gear. It's just Texas humidity. Kind of joke.
That's what it feels like. Oh my God.
It's exactly what it feels like. It's exactly what
That's
it feels
great.
like. Yeah, it's really good.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
And we'll see y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we'd really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.